Tēnā koutou. Welcome back after our lunch break. We are about to actually go through our CapEx work program, and we're looking at our overall capital expenditure. These are the raw numbers for the first 3 years. We've given you the first 3 years in the one sheet up there. One of the things I just really want to clarify, because it's come up a few times today about when we have to actually borrow if we have gone over for OPEX, I really just want to clarify, OPEX and wages are not one and the same. The wages are a very small component of OPEX. As a matter of fact, the difference from 2022 to 2023, what we budgeted and what we spent was $960 on wages. So we're pretty darn good about budgeting for our remuneration. So the bulk of OPEX borrowings or what have you are around depreciation and interest charges. So I just really want to be clear that we don't borrow for wages. It's actually against the Local Government Act and the Local Government Funding Act if we do that. So we're very careful about our REM. That being said, when we go into this, we're looking at the CapEx different projects, and we have got the activity managers attending this afternoon who we can invite to come up front to talk about specific things, any questions you want to direct towards them. I will ask, there will be some consequential OPEX as a result of some of these projects, and while the managers are here, they are going to take the opportunity to also talk about some of the pressures of trying to deliver the current levels of service, because you did talk about wanting to review the levels of service, which may mean an increase in number of positions needed to meet that level of service. So a little bit of OPEX may come into these conversations, but that's not our focus here today. Our focus is looking at what savings you want to be made in the CapEx, and they're going to talk about the consequence of any potential modeling that you ask us to present, what that might mean in real terms. So I'm going to turn the floor back over to Andrea and Brad, and we're going to get started. We will probably focus less on the internal CapEx ones and more on the big major spend areas, which are your external CapEx activities. Okay. Over to you, Andrea. Thank you.
And sorry, Andrea, so when we're going through these, can we just have a lens across what we're borrowing for? Because that's probably a key one, because some of the CapEx is going to be funded by depreciation, etc. So can we just within COE?
That's not that simple.
No, I know, but if I mean, well, there will be certainly some examples, because that's probably a key one for us as far as our thinking, understanding what we're taking debt for and what we're not taking, as far as the activity, the capital sitting within it. But let's start and we'll see how we go.
Yes. Brad may have a different view on that.
Yeah, it is trickier to pinpoint, but we can try our best.
I guess that's where the funding impact statements for those activities actually highlights essentially what is coming from a reserve, depreciation and debt. So at this point, we haven't, because we haven't settled on a modelled scenario, the financial, the FIS statements are not produced. So that would be where that type of thing, but you know, obviously when you get down to roading, for example, well, funded by, or partially funded by Waka Kotahi. So there's those that are clear, but then there's some that are not as clear. So for example, you know, information technology, so laptops and the like, that's, you know, not funded. It's funded by renewals and depreciation, so yeah.
I guess, don't we sort of need to know what number we can spend, because, and then we actually we're back, so if we're able to spend 50 million, that's the number, we've got to lose 31 million. If we're allowed to spend 70 million for the next year, we need to lose 65 million. So isn't that where we start? We go, right, we need to lose $65 million worth here, so how do we go about prioritising what we're going to lose?
So I guess from the conversation today, we don't know that because we haven't modelled the 2.1 debt cap, essentially then, or the rates number that we're looking for. So at this point, we don't actually know what the dollar value is that we need to be looking at, if that makes sense. Because we haven't actually, like I say, we haven't modelled what does that look like? You know, because every time you change what your rates is, then that obviously changes your debt cap. So if you're not comfortable with a 31% increase or an 18% increase, if it's a 10% increase, then that's essentially then going to significantly drop what your debt cap would be. So until they're all modelled, we don't necessarily know what is that bracket that we're aiming for.
That's cool. So let's, do you want to, approach is going to be to work through these line by line? Is that how you want to take? Because
I guess it's at the higher level. So information technology, for example, you know, there's probably not a lot there that we can, you know, we need information technology to actually run the organisation. So, you know, is it reasonable what we've got in there? Yes, no, you know. But I think it's those kind of things for us to make any significant savings, once again, is that $700,000, you know, impact that they're ultimately going to have when it comes to interest and things like that. So I guess it gets to whatever level that you're comfortable to say, well, okay, that's small enough that, you know, it's probably okay.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So I agree around IT. So let's,
Look, businesses change, you know, Air New Zealand loses 1,000 staff and they keep going. So I'm not accepting any of these numbers. I think any that sit there, we should be asking, why can't we save 10% of that number? Have we got enough licences? Have we got too many licences? Are the hot desks? I mean, all that stuff I don't know about. But just to accept a number when what we're facing is a crisis, really, in either rates or capital, I don't buy it. Because it's just because we don't know about it, we're not going to challenge it. Doesn't seem right. Because I'm sure if I brought a technical expert in, he'd tell me there'd be places I could save money. If that makes sense.
I think, Stu, the question you could ask is every second year there's a significant spend on software purchases and upgrades, and so it's understanding, because that equals $8 million, right, over 10 years. So maybe an explanation of why every second year there's an increase, that would be quite a good thing to know.
Councillors, we're happy to provide that information, not for today.
Yeah.
Today, we are focusing on your major CapEx spend. The numbers that you were talking about, they're rats and mice.
But
CapEx.
million
but rats and mice add up.
The rats and mice do add up, but we haven't prepared the information around internal CapEx for the purpose of today, because where you have more direct control is really around the things that are going out to the public, and it's through your CEO that you start looking at these CapEx costs for the operational side of the business. That's not really something we can present to you. That's a conversation with your chief executive, because those are necessary business costs, and it's up to him to justify those to you.
I disagree. I do disagree. IT, I think we need more information, but let's just identify where the issues are and where they might sit. Because otherwise, there's no point in today if we're just talking about these major projects. We do need to get into the detail because, 20 small things will add up to $15 million.
I take that on board, and I appreciate that feedback, But for today, we're not prepared to have that conversation because you need your chief executive here to have that. So he cannot make this afternoon, so we will, how about we have that conversation next week if we start looking at that internal thing? We have a workshop scheduled for next week. Would you be happy to defer that to next week?
So, yeah, but my question is, are we not going to go through these?
We're not going through all 85 lines. We're going to go through the really big ones at this point of time because I have the managers here from the departments that have the largest spend where you can
Yep, which is what we want to do. So let's get to cemeteries, eh?
Okay,
That
that
would have been
sounds,
quite handy
Yeah.
to know, because I actually spent a lot of hours on this, going line by line. So would have been handy to have a heads up on we're going to focus on 10 key areas rather than I actually analysed every single goddamn line.
No, let's see where we get to.
Well, that's a bit annoying.
No,
They're
so
wasted.
question around IT, is someone recording this information as far as questions? Yeah, so let's go to cemeteries. Is there any questions around cemetery spend? Yeah, Michelle.
I'll invite Bill to come back forward.
I just wonder why we've got that in 2025 when I thought our existing cemetery would last us another kind of 5 to 7 years. And I just thought that we should be pushing that development out as far as we can. And then my second question is, while that land's sitting there not being developed, are we earning income off it?
Second question first, yes, it is leased out for grazing. And we need to have the infrastructure in place ready for ahead of time. Otherwise, we can't use the cemetery.
To Michelle's point though, Bill, ahead of time, are we going to be, if we do it next year, or whenever it is, 2026, how far ahead of time are we? Because
So-
we'll get the cost of depreciation on that, so if we put it out 2 years, it may save us and interest on the money we're obviously borrowing.
Yeah, we can also stage it so that we don't have to do the whole lot all at once and don't borrow that. So we can probably, I think we can probably push it out, just check with me, probably another year I would be comfortable with. Beyond that, it's getting a bit touch and go.
Well, it's a good start though,
Yeah.
because we've saved some money.
What's involved, Bill? Is it just putting roads in and infrastructure such as?
Yeah, we've got to put shelter, screen planting in, water supply, all the infrastructure. But we don't have to do it all at once either.
Right, anything further on cemeteries? And then, and my question around, because obviously the 45 beams, et cetera, that you do every, as and when you need them really, don't you?
Yeah.
Just to stay ahead of time.
Yeah.
That's just going to be out of your OPEX, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And the 23,000 there, that's about one beam.
Yes, yeah, I would have thought so, yeah. Okay, cool, so let's move on. Thank you, Bill. Let's invite Dixon to the hot chair. This is like a game show, isn't it? Next contestant, please, Mr. Dixon, welcome.
Andrew, mine's the same question as Michelle's. Why are we doing it next year? Why can't we push it out till Air New Zealand decide to bring the bigger planes? Because it might be 10 years. I know what they say, but why can't we wait till they actually make the decision that they will be bringing the planes, tell them to give us 6 months run-in time and we'll do it then?
Number of factors come into this. Firstly, the bigger planes are arriving on the 5th of December this year, and that is being used there. So an ATR is now going to be the backup plane for Timaru should one of the Q300s not be available. So we are getting them. The other thing is too that we are almost at the limits of where our numbers of people in the terminal at the moment. We're struggling to get our building warrant of fitness because of the numbers there. When you've got two planes arrive much at the same time, so you've got arrivals and departures coming in, and that's where we're stretched on our numbers. The third side is the AVSEC. Now, if government goes ahead and says, right, you know, the smaller planes have to have aviation security, we won't get much warning, and we have not got the space to implement it. So it's a case of future-proofing it and protecting the Air New Zealand service. If you want to take the risk of losing the Air New Zealand service completely, then yes, you can delay it. But I just point out, there is a risk in doing that.
Sorry, Ellen, I'll let you go next. The cameras, can you just help us understand what that is? The security cameras, it's a massive cost in there. 540 in the first year, 2 million over the 1 to 5 years. Security cameras, it's a pretty neat system.
No, you're on the wrong line.
I'm sure I'm on the right line.
The security cameras is the 215, and yeah.
That's correct, isn't it? Yeah. Is that surveillance cameras?
Yeah, with surveillance cameras, it's just really keeping the system updated. I don't know how that number's been derived. I'll have to talk to our airport manager about that, and you'll have an opportunity to ask that question this afternoon.
Okay, cool. So that's listed. Someone will record that. You'll come back. We'll come back to that one because it's a big number. Alan, you had a question?
Yeah, so to receive the ATRs initially, obviously the runway, is that was the runway up to standard?
The runway's of insufficient length for a fully loaded ATR, but at the moment, the Air New Zealand if they bring in a backup plane as an ATR, then there's still only going to be maximum 50 passengers on it. So the runway will cope at that point. But if they want to fully load that plane, we are faced with extending the runway.
Yeah, I mean, the airport is an important part of infrastructure and our connection to the rest of the country. So I just wonder whether we need to go the full noise with the terminal, because we've done the terminal twice now in a very short period of time. So I'd probably prefer to see the plane arrive first and see what the impact it had. But obviously, I'm still in support of that activity getting done.
And obviously, we're at the airport this afternoon, so we can have a further conversation. So, yeah.
Around that terminal upgrade, sorry, I missed the start because Peter was talking to me. The terminal upgrade, sorry. So that is driven not by Air New Zealand, about our code of compliance of people. That's what I heard, sorry. And so, that's annoying, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess that's one of the main drivers. So, but there is options on the size of the terminal extension you can do. So, you know, we can scale it back to do just a minimum, provide enough space for aviation security in the future. Maybe not have, Air New Zealand has a desire at some stage in the future to separate arrivals and departures, which means they'll move the check-in down the other end of the terminal. But, you know, they haven't given us that assurance at the moment. That's another question asked this afternoon. Air New Zealand will be there.
Yeah, okay, because I mean, I've just been into Napier, Invercargill, some new airports over the last 4 weeks, and they don't have any of that. So we're such a small community compared to those particular ones, and their airport's just one big thing. They have a cafe, that's about it.
Yeah, well, at the moment, aviation security is not required for basically only a jet, and yeah, so the ATRs and the Q300s don't require it, but it is under review at the moment by civil aviation, and yeah, they could impose it. It's one of those regulatory things.
Yeah, Michelle.
Sorry, economic benefit aside, what is the ability to increase fees and charges if we extend the runway and the airport from Air New Zealand? It feels like they're putting these demands on, but are they going to stump up with higher fees?
Well, their landing charges are up for negotiation, so yeah, I think there is some scope there to get extra revenue.
Perfect. Anything more in the airport? No. Moving to public toilets. Nicole, So I note the new toilet to support sea play, 200K. There again, question around, I assume there again, these are all just funded through rates, as opposed to needing to borrow for any of this activity.
Yes. And to let you know that each Exeter, we've got 36 groups of toilets across the entire district, so we actually have a rolling plan that we try and do at least one or two a year, depending on if it's a fit out inside or a new Exeloo. The Exeloos plus installation with the new slabs, any plumbing, are approximately $100,000 each. So that's why we can't actually do too many, and the 200,000 takes care of two down right on the playground.
So with that, because initially when Sea Play was being developed and there was a wish list for more toilets, and we have a central block down in Caroline Bay, it was discussed that public toilets wouldn't be put near the playground because of the central block. So how did this come about to change minds?
Well, a request actually from the group, safety issue in regards to children being able to go to the toilet, be supervised. Otherwise, if you have families, this is the conversation that's
Yeah, I've heard that conversation, but many families have done.
Yeah, so I'm just responding to, there was absolutely no money in the budgets when Sea Play first came into place. We were already 3 years in. I'm putting there as an option for you as councillors. I'm not saying we have to have it. It has been requested from members of the public and community. It's there as an option if you choose or want to put something right on the playground.
And I also say that for our fellow councillors to think about whether this is one of the mice that really do we need. When we look at other public toilets, e.g. West End Park, that is used frequently by sports club, walkers, lots of exercise, a small playground, that could really do with an update.
Yep.
So, you know, it's choosing where we want to put that money. Is this something that we can kick the can down the road when there's a good facility block already within probably 50, 100 metres, and look at some other blocks that are well used that could do with an update?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
My point there is, though, if we're building that, not an extra 200, that just goes to the front of the list and move the others out a year. It's not going to matter. These are the things that suddenly 200,000 times 10's 2 million. So I'd suggest that's up to you, Nicole, on your priority list, but we don't put an extra 200,000 in. If it's a priority, it goes in front of whatever follows,
Yes.
would be my suggestion on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can make a note for that.
In the entirety, there's quite a few like public toilet stuff. So that's where so for under road, street landscapes, there's M60 is another 600,000 public toilet zone 1. So then I was like, do they sit in different?
There are some toilets that are part of the parks that don't come into the district toilets that are actually on your main highways. It's part of a service you provide to truckies and others in sort of the back roads and also down your main street highway. And then there are some toilets that are part of Parks and Rec that we don't cover. Yeah.
Can I?
Is that the one we're talking about?
Sorry, still got.
Or City Town, if it's Strathallan Corner, City Town have received $300,000 funding towards those. So though they're covered, they can come off my list now because they were due for a refit. They come off that list and they're being taken care of. The funds are clear for that. And 300,000 is an addition to that fund.
Sorry to interrupt.
Sorry, that's fine.
Just in terms of, again, each of these yearly upgrades, if you like, 100 plus K, that seems to be obviously an extraordinarily good upgrade in each of these bathrooms. And I just say that from when I went down to Invercargill a few weeks back, and the toilet at the playground there looked like it was built in 1970, but it was perfect and clean. So I can't help but look at these numbers and think, when we're looking at levels of service, do we need to do a full upgrade in each one of those ones that we're looking at?
Exactly. So again, there are some that we know are better transferred into what we call an Exeloo style, and then there are others that we do an internal, and then we do actually have quite a lot of vandalism across various toilets. We've had them recently in Marchville and also down in Pariora, and depending on what's been vandalised, then we have to capitalise some of the new toilets, etc. So there's a little bit of wiggle room there for any vandalism. And we look at each block and determine whether we're at a point to completely convert to an Exeloo style or whether we refit the inside. So again, we can look at just doing a refit for now and then push any Exelou style further out.
Without getting stuck in the toilet, Nicole.
I know.
You're just first on the list, but to me, this is a classic of we just get this every year asked for, and we've agreed. If we're tight on capital, why aren't we doing it every second year? Why aren't we saving ourselves some money along this line? And to Scotty's point, you know, really looking at it rather than just say, hang on, I need X amount a year because that's what we've always had, because that's what it's going to come down to on this list.
Yep.
There's going to be a lot of hard conversations.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just back to the toilet block at Seaplay, I think there's economic factors in the mix here as well. I mean, we have created a destination playground down there, so we are intending to bring people from outside of the district into this district to use some toilets. So, you know, I think we do need some reasonably good ones down there in order to cater for that.
I think Councillor Puddington's point is a good one, though. No new money, as opposed to, so it just competes against the other toilets. If we leave them long enough, they will become vintage toilets, and it'll be a selling point. So, so I think there's some direction as far as the loos. Let's keep moving. Civil defence. There's a couple of things in there. Probably the main question for me would be decommissioning of old sirens. Are we? Is Paul here? You might know. But are we? I'd hope we're not borrowing to do that. But 180k to decommission sirens. I think we've asked this before, but it just seems a lot, doesn't it? But I don't think there's anyone here, so we'll park that. Is there someone who is recording questions for later for follow-ups? Oh, sorry, Jess, you're hiding in the back there. Thanks, mate. Cheers. So let's move.
If I could just touch base maybe on the decommissioning of the old sirens.
Yeah.
Not that it's my domain, but my understanding is that that budget is because they're based on the poles.
Yeah.
And I think it's to remove the full structure was the idea behind that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there was something in it. Yeah.
So that's probably why that's a bigger cost, because it's not just taking the siren off the pole. I think it's to remove the whole structure of the old ones.
Don't want to leave it until it falls over. Housing, welcome back, Nicole. Go for it. Who wants to go? Stu.
Yeah, just the solar panel installation, $1.6 million over time. Have we done any research to the value, whether our tenants will use it, all that sort of stuff? Because again, a good to have, but $1.6 million.
Yes. We have an opportunity for a fund to do a 50-50 split and to be able to look at, in first instance, a group of flats in Temuka. So we were going, because they're in blocks of 4, we were going to look at a block of 4 and test one with a 50-50 application and see if that worked. And it's to offset any cost of electricity in regards to heating, heat pumps and water heating for tenants who are sort of your pensioner aged, and then we could look at the rest if it's stacked up. So I'm quite happy if we feel it is a nice to have. I can remove the rest, but it's an opportunity to look at climate change to offset for people that are on your fixed income. And we've got a 50-50 opportunity for that first
And the question
group.
is, would be, is that activity, I mean, this
And
is
it's
probably...
self-funding
It
in
is
regards
self-funding.
to, so the houses are self-funding. There's no rates or any, whatever we receive in income goes back into these houses. So there's no public contribution to this at all,
And with that
other than the rental.
increase of service level, do we get to increase our rents accordingly? That's the challenge with it, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. And are we... I get as far as that vulnerable part of our community, I understand what you're trying to achieve, but the question is, can you afford it in 1.6 mil?
But this, that would only be, as I said, it's self-funding. The more flats that we lease out, the more there's that availability to be able to do those works over time.
I think this needs to be captured as part of the 17A anyway review for housing, so we can probably move forward if everyone's comfortable.
So sorry, is this...
Alan.
Sorry, silly. Is this cost neutral then? That is not 5 million, we actually get income to cover that number, or is that over and above our income from the houses?
Everything is within the income we receive for the flats. We can't spend over that. I don't ask for any funds.
So
we-
so the
we've leased
5.2 million is basically, it's not, you're getting that in income to cover those
On
costs?
average, we receive $1.5 million a year in rent from those flats.
1.5, so basically, it's well within the income that you're receiving?
I feel it is, yes.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, and we're doing a full review on that housing, Alan, so we'll have that in the future.
I'm a little confused, Nicole, because I was always under the understanding that they were self-funding. During our roadshows that we did, the staff that I spoke to made it quite clear that they are not self-funding. So can you explain to me regarding because I've been in council for a long time, always thought they were self-funding. I get told that no, they're not self-funding.
So apologies for that. We do have a new staff member, Diane, who is now part of that team, only been with us for just over 3 months, and won't be aware of the funding model attached to this. And again, Matt, who's come into our department, the group that were there, talking to you, have not been involved in the actual budgets, etc., because they're new into the department. So it's a correction on my part. It is self-funding. I can guarantee that.
Thanks, Sally. It did get there marginal a couple of years ago, though, but it will get picked up with the 70
Yes.
review anyway. So we may as well keep going. Council building, probably the question is around that earthquake strengthening, I assume, for people, Nicole.
Yes.
Yeah, the 850 and 2.4.
So again, we looked at this building in regards to earthquake strengthening. We've had some basic reports completed, and because we have the EOC Centre, the emergency centre downstairs, I was under the impression, and there's 2 ways you can look at this in regards to the regulatory rules. The EOC Centre, you could suggest, means if we look at emergency centres, we have to have 100% IL4 cover. So if we applied that to this building, it means it's actually under code. So what we'd have to do is either look at the EOC Centre being placed elsewhere, so we're looking at those options, or we debate and I get a further clarification on the regulatory position. But there still is some works to do to this building. But again, there's not a timeline on them being done unless it's within, if it's classed as an EOC centre within this building and therefore classed as regulatory repair.
Are there other options outside what we have for EOC?
Yes, yes. So
Because to me, again, 3.3, I'd want to make sure there's no option that we can't lease somewhere. There's another government department that's up to scratch. It just seems a huge amount. And I don't think that would be enough if it is earthquake prone.
So we are looking at West End Hall as that opportunity, and we're adding a few extras in regards to connectivity and supplying electricity through a generator, etc., so that could actually be flashed up as an EOC centre. And that takes the issue off this building, and then we have more time to actually plan the repairs that need to happen at some point to this building, but maybe not in this current climate. We could push those out.
Nicole, are you looking at Alpine Energy? Because they've got quite a large room there, haven't they, with a brand new building that
I know.
is a partially community-owned asset that could be a good
Yeah,
solution.
yeah.
But my other question actually is, in the costs in here, is it just about earthquake strengthening, or is there an element of upgrade to the building here? Because
So at the same time, we would
like
do
to see
a little, so at the same time, we do a little bit of upgrade. But in regards to the earthquake works would actually cause us to do further works to repair, because it's invasive work around our clock tower and around some of the core elements of the building. If we were not to do that, then we'd be back to just our regular painting, but we do have, this building is 11 years old now, and it is starting to show its age in regards to kit on the roof, etc. These things don't last forever, so we have to have some funds, because if some of our systems on the roof go down, we have to repair them for heat it within the building. And plumbing is turning out to be an interesting one over time too.
Okay, so that's a question of timing as far as flex.
Yep.
And there might be further. So everyone comfortable, council?
I'd suggest take
Oh,
it
yeah.
out.
So we go Alan then.
I'd
Stace.
suggest take it out. Just going to suggest we carry on doing Nicole's stuff while She's sitting here too.
Oh, I had a double question too, so just to clarify, so the EQ repairs, we've got 3.3 million in there, but we haven't done an assessment.
Yes, I've done all the assessments, yes.
Okay, this is in our category one,
And
one of our 8 buildings that we're focused on?
Yes, yes.
Okay, because so if we jump down to M161, which is earthquake strengthening, you have 1.1 million in there for the remaining 7 buildings? Because to me, that is significantly short. That wouldn't even pay for the Temuka Library.
Separate,
It's-
it's
I know-
not, it's not under.
No, you're getting a brand new one in this. I know, but
Yeah, so you
earthquake
wouldn't- so you
strengthening
wouldn't do
still
the
has to happen
work.
in this next wee window, in this window. Are we just not going to do it and build a new library?
So-
That's a different question, but I'm just wondering of whether this is way too small. So, sorry team, I'm looking to, just to clarify, you think you have enough money for those first lot of category 1 buildings?
No,
No.
this is a reduced amount, which I've already put a pen through. So no, I don't have enough. I'm being really honest about that. But then I would have to look at the priority buildings that we would need to look at in that first 3 years. And if it becomes 1 building a year or 1 every second year, I have significantly reduced that before coming to this table already.
I think the theory around that was there was a lot more work to be done in the next 3 years to get a definitive plan on exactly what numbers need to be. Would that be fair to
Yeah,
sort
and
of
that's
shape?
part way through.
Yeah.
The reports are being done. Then we look at what the recommendations of the reports are. Then we go out and QS and start to price those recommendations and then prioritise the buildings as to which needs to be first cab off the rank. And it's in regards to a priority building. Is it an EOC? Is it an emergency centre? And then is it in the age range where your clock is ticking to repair? So then we prioritise them into that list. Yeah.
Come into the first 5 years. So it just worries me that since we're looking at 227, sort of focused on that, we don't, I would have thought that's quite an urgent thing I'd like to see before next year. Some more clarity around that before our next round of workshops, because I think we'll undercut that.
Yep, I can do that.
Cool. Captured. Good point. Councillor Booth will keep Nicole there and deal with her stuff. So we'll go to property, which carries on with part of the conversation. I guess my first question before I go to the floor, outdoor pursuits, accessibility, walking track, etc. Is that the one that we talked about with the, because I think I just remember the conversation was, there was never any real hurry.
No,
And how is that funded would be my
well, they
part B.
were interested, first of all, in regards to the contractual arrangement within 5 years. We've now pushed that out to 10. In that we've had a conversation internally whether that should actually sit in this budget or whether it should go across into Parks and Rec or land transport in regards to. But we have a contractual arrangement. If they uplift the last amount of money and sign the contract, we have an arrangement with them to install that track. If they don't come forward and uplift that final amount of money, then there's no track to be installed. So it's chicken and egg, that one at this stage.
And how's that funded, those sort of small things? Is that loan, will that be loan?
It would have to be loan because
Would have to be loan.
apologies, yeah.
Property
Property last line.
below land transport, we'll just bump Susie and we'll come back to that. Yeah.
The line above that, Nicole, can you explain what that actually means on the Temuka Alpine Energy?
Yes. So Temuka Alpine Energy Stadium is one of your emergency centres, so it's part of your priority list. That building has a construction that is exactly the same as the Aorangi Stadium or STEC, and the same issues, but on a much smaller scale. In regards to the Temuka area, at this stage, if we deregister that building from your emergency, you have no emergency centre available to you other than possibly the Marae.
So again, have we gone out and asked other people that there are other modern buildings there?
I haven't, I'm looking at Temuka at this stage, and I'm looking at the Jehovah's Witness Hall. We can't use the library because that's under code, so are there any other bigger buildings that you feel would cater? This building is under code. where some basic works that we can do here, we can bring it back on the emergency, and then it is available then as a functioning centre above code.
Take it out as well, I'd suggest. Point, you know, I mean, we just can't, we've got to, you know, we just can't afford all this stuff, and, you know, we just got to start pulling stuff out. So it's working, it's happening, it's set up, it's doing the job.
If you were to look at all the buildings in regards to the earthquake prone, I would have, in my opinion, as looking at other properties, that is actually your first cab off the rank. I would fix that because of the hole you have in Temuka in regards to an emergency centre. For any reason, even if you had flooding further up, that is the only building that can cater for a large amount of people within that building and your parks area. So if you did nothing else, could I suggest you think about that building as the one to concentrate on?
Yeah, look, and I know
I guess part of it, Nicole, is though, surely we should have a report. We should know what our earthquake, rather than this ad hoc way of doing it. We should have a priority list so we know where we're spending our money and why we're spending it when it regards to earthquake-prone buildings.
Yep. And I'm happy to come, and that's part of the next wave of the reports you've had recently about earthquake buildings. This is the next report, of which I was already formulating with Trudy when she was here, and to come forward to you. So it hasn't come forward yet, but that report is already part written.
What we've suggested, Councillor Piddington, is that we take the next 3 years, because we have X amount of years until the regulations force us to take action. We take the next 3 years to fully understand and scope the scale of it. So we put some funding aside for establishing that, and then at that point we can make some decisions about coming back to council, and council can make decisions about what use they want to carry on with buildings, if they want to offload some buildings, what the deficit in some buildings might be, and what the cost might be over the next 20 years. It's huge, and it's bigger than property. It's across the whole of the organisation. So we want to come back with that information.
I accept that, but Michelle's point of Alpine Energy building out at Washdyke, in the budget, we've got to build this up and money in there before we've actually gone out and sought other opportunities.
So for the EOC Centre, absolutely the Alpine Energy building would work. I have to say that I led that project, so I know that building intimately down to the last plug. And absolutely it's been built to enable and help, but they've just moved Netcon into that building now as well, so they've got extra pressure in regards to space in that building.
We do have...
But your EOC's easily solved here.
Yeah, we do have an alternative at Temuka, which is the Marae, which has
Yes.
been offered up to us, which
Yeah.
is a modern facility, is above code, does
Yeah.
provide 90 beds and a commercial kitchen. So there are other options, but it's really a level of service question around whether or not that project goes ahead. Its current use is a civil defence centre, which is a welfare centre in the old speak. It's whether or not we continue to use that. That's part of this conversation.
Yeah.
To be fair to the officers, I prefer it to be in there so we can see everything that might be a possibility. It's not in there saying we're doing it. It's in there saying this is what could be, you know. So I'd rather all of the stuff was in there and we take
look,
it
and
out.
the
rather than
approach
other way
might be
around.
business case to business case and a larger fund that they apply to or something, but it still needs to be as far as their budgeting, and I don't disagree. Right, so that's got some direction on that.
Sorry, Nigel, I'd like to test the Marae option again. If it's already there and it's a resource, why are we not having a look at that?
So,
Yeah, it's in
Yeah,
between.
it's between the rivers. Currently, there's a flooding problem with the access to it in certain circumstances.
It was your suggestion, Paul.
And I believe we are looking to my colleague over to my right here at lifting the causeway a bit so that it doesn't flood and it does become more robust and useful in a flooding event. Is he?
Yeah, and Susie
That's
might-
correct, yeah. I thought it was,
Susie can talk to that when we bring her up. Alrighty. Was that all your stuff, Nicole? Are we missing anything? Yeah, let's just whip through the motor camps and fishing huts quickly. And halls, yeah. Cool. What's your next one there, Nicole? Is it, we'll start with gallery then, will be the next one. Oh, yeah, no, Beth's here, that's good. Questions on art gallery? My question was around the off-site art store development, temporary 5 years is about 620K. I'm assuming that's rate funded because it's either a lease or something, is it? Or is that?
Where are we up to?
We are in the gallery and it's on M52, so it's off-site art store development. It's just significant money to be spending over a period of time, which might be better invested in a permanent solution potentially.
Yeah. I'm still, thank you for your patience as well, because I'm still getting my head across all of these.
Yeah, that's fine, Beth. We'll
My
give you some
understanding,
grace.
and I'll speak to my understanding of it, it's not in that one, is that it's specifically around temperature-controlled storage of art.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the questions that we are having, and one of the things that we're exploring, is because obviously the museum, the art gallery, and the library high-value materials. Obviously, the museum and the library themselves have got archival material. Each one of those had originally asked for their own kind of temperature-controlled space where they could have archival storage. One of the things we will be exploring with them is maybe there's a central repository that we can keep all of that material, so condensing it down so it's a single site.
Perfectly, if that can be explored.
Yeah.
Yeah, tilt
We're doing
stab.
that. It's on the agenda.
Beth, I presume that off-site art store development, because it says temporary 5 years, is because of the potential building the next one.
Yes.
So that will be the temporary solution, so we're going to, but I had a similar question to that, was around, have we considered the museum?
As a temporary location for storage of art, yes, there was a conversation that I started having with the teams last week about that.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Again, that feeds into that question around where archival material is stored and where it can be accessed by the community.
Yeah.
So that's right.
That links into M52. And back to your point as well, Councillor Scott, yes, it is directly linked with the proposal for the new development. So one will go hand in hand with the other or not. I can confirm as well that the EQ strengthening, so from 38, M47 down to M51 are obviously underway. So they can be removed and will be removed from this particular piece of work.
So, a quick question. General upgrades and renewals, do you know what specifically that might be at 80K a year when you've just got potentially a new building and...
Oh, just be general repairs and maintenance across most activities will have something like that.
At the gallery?
Yeah, we'll have that.
Just after it's been upgraded though, that's my question.
It's only a portion.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Going to talk about the $9.5 million elephant in the room, or is that not today? Because
To the point.
that's today. Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, but if you leave it in the 10-year plan, it's not as big an elephant as if you put it into year 11.
Yeah, that's right. You clearly want to start that conversation then.
No, I understand that, yeah.
I think it's awesome that we're doing obviously we've the project to go ahead for the earthquake strengthening, which will significantly change our service at the art gallery, which I think our community is really excited about. And so I don't know, there's something inside me. I don't know much about this, and I know Alan and Stu, you spent more time on this particular extension, but I just wonder we need to put a bit of a hold on that, because once we get that gallery, the house done, and it's been out of service for so long, will that be sufficient, and can we optimise our opportunities with that? And I just think this is a real luxury, and I don't know if it's really needed. Sorry, I'm putting it out there, team.
I agree.
It is
Yeah.
recording.
I agree as well. I think it's a luxury we can't afford at the moment, and if, as Councillor Booth says, we have to start taking stuff out, that would seem to me to be a place to start.
Yeah, it's a bit of a pause and wait and see, to your point. I think, yep, I think everyone's on the same page. So we can push that further out, but good point, CFO. Can't keep kicking the can if it does need to be done at some point. Sorry, now, all good on the art. Now, your next one. Oh, sorry?
Sorry, but we just keep buying new art. I guess that's how you operate when you've got an art gallery. But do we ever sell any, or do we just keep buying more? And maybe if we sold some, we wouldn't need some storage or so. I don't know. We just seem to keep buying more.
Are you suggesting selling all our art for the LTP?
Have a Goldie, that'd probably fetch quite a bit.
I don't expect an answer on that. It's just
I don't have
it's
one.
a rhetorical question.
Yeah, I can find out.
I don't think it is.
Yeah, on Facebook Marketplace.
I don't think it is a rhetorical question, actually.
something to think about.
That's
I
the
didn't
one
know
thing
if
I've
we
got
should
here too. If you've got X amount of art and we only see it once every 10 years, it's of some value.
Can I?
It's
also-
how we receive them. I mean, most of them are bequeathed or have legacy.
Some
to
of
them,
it's
and
bequeathed, not all of it, yeah.
Other than that, it's just rats and mice, and as my colleague here said, it's a couple of new toilets.
So I guess one thing, we obviously revalued artwork last year, and it is at September 2022 was valued at about $15 million.
Conversely, I would also posit that it becomes a major tourism draw card as well. So if you sell that, you could end up losing one of the core facilities that draw a lot of people into the district. So these are the sorts of things that you need to consider.
I don't think we're probably spending too much time on that one. Conscious that we. So any further on the art? Stay there though, Beth. Museum. Jump in, Stu.
Yeah, just the Heritage Hub fit out, there's $1,058,000. Why is that in there? I thought we were the 2,500s. Just a mystery to me if we're opening a new museum, why we need another $1 million to fit it out in 3 years' time.
So I think Philip is looking at, so apologies, Philip is looking at the centre. It does need some work done to retrofit. If it was to become a centre depository for artworks or others, there is some humidity work that you need to do in that building. So that's what he's looking at. The year after we move a lot of the equipment, it's a storage for art. I'll pass back to...
To be fair, you don't move artworks. If they're actually where they are, they need to stay there because you're just going to damage them. So that's why the storage is on site and it needs to remain on site.
Yeah. So I can interject there. So this will be specifically where we're looking at the museum and potentially library co-location of archival material. But there is, to Nicole's point as well, quite a bit of upgrade work that does need to go into that in order to make that building fit for purpose.
It is common to move art though for exhibition as an example, and that's why the van's there. So, and I think that's the opportunity, isn't the efficiency of, I would go as far as sell the museum site. Let's build something fit for purpose and combine those activities into one tilt slab, air-conditioned Stafford Street shop, whatever. Yeah. So that's an opportunity sitting there in there, isn't it?
Well, that's
Let's move.
I have one question, sorry. Heritage Hub fit out, significantly under. I thought it was 3 million and you've got 790.
No, that's our contribution, so the rest is
Our
fundraisers.
contribution 790.
Yes, that's correct. Yep. So that's fundraisers, the total 3 mil. They've got to go to 2.2, yeah. So theatre, sure there's nothing to discuss there. Or to be perfectly honest, we have had, is there anything further for those? I know we're going to have other conversations on that, so do we need to have a, jump in if you want to, but otherwise...
I guess we need to let the community know we are moving ahead, but it's where exactly it sits, because we can't go through all that and not look at that, and they'll say, what's going on?
No, I think the message to the community is we're, as every LTP, we're looking across every activity and every capital project. That would be the, yeah.
Well, I think if the community knew really what this thing was going to cost and where it all started, they'd actually be questioning what we're doing, quite frankly. That's a huge number, and we're a very small group of people. And so I'm staggered that we're actually at this stage and we're still considering it. As you all know, it's, you know, we're heading up to whatever it is. What is the number? It says 49 million there, but I think it's a lot more than that. So, you know, that's going to make a huge difference to us and our debt and in achieving a balanced, some form of balanced budget, if we were actually just to take that pressure off ourselves, because that's going to max us out. That number there is massive, and it's not all in. So I think everyone needs to be well aware of that, and you know what I think.
No, could you? No, we do. You have been very clear, Alan, so we do know exactly. But let's move forward. Any further questions on Theatre Royal?
Sorry,
Yeah. No, you're right.
I'm not going to
No, that's
go
okay.
back there. Still a little traumatised. But no, I just, when we get to just talking about workshopping and numbers, because I think that 2025 is short, and we'll figure that out right in March when we do the next round. So how do you adjust that? So like, say that needs another 5 mil added to it, which I think we already know with contingencies that it does. How do we adjust that?
So obviously this is work in progress.
Oh, yeah,
So
okay.
essentially, until such time that we put it out for consultation, by that point we'll have a better understanding of this particular project, and then essentially then it goes out to the public, and then, yeah. Because remembering these overall numbers don't get locked in until the 25th of June. So we've got essentially a 6-month window of reiterations, you know, different scenarios and the like. I guess it's now 2:00. We have essentially half an hour before you depart. I guess going forward, I'm just not sure whether we're going to necessarily get through all of this. I'm looking at Vinci for some kind of...
Yeah, we can. Maybe if we just prioritise a couple, but I think we still want to come back to this and to finish the detail, if that's okay, Vinci.
I'm going to suggest next Tuesday you have another workshop.
Yeah.
And so we can pick up where you leave off, but I suggest that while you have specific activity managers,
Yes, agreed.
let's prioritise their
Those.
projects for their time.
Yeah, okay.
Thank
so,
you, councillors.
Yeah, so is there any stuff sitting with Nicole and Beth that's,
Stacey had some questions around the hall.
halls, yeah?
It's 2 million for renewals and upgrades.
Yeah.
And my question is to what? Like as in, is there a schedule? Do we say this hall needs this? Or is that just a bit like is that just a blanketed cost? Or do you have a game plan?
So we have, yes, there is a game plan. We have 50 halls approximately altogether, but we focus on 10 which are like a Caroline Bay, etc. And we've got rolling capital works that we do. So it may be some painting, it may be a little bit of roof repair. So we're pretty much up to date with a lot. So this is just the money that you see each year goes across 10 buildings, which is not an awful lot when you're in the scheme of things. And depending on where we get to, it's mostly some carpet renewal, some painting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool, that's well.
We asked a couple of years ago, and I forget who we asked, but can we have an update on the halls that we own and the usage? Because it may come down to selling assets or
Yes.
getting rid of, not maintaining ones because they're too expensive. And we've just never seen it, so I'm keen to see something like that.
So the halls are now on the bookable system, so I now have access to that information, who's booking what hall. And the only thing to be aware of in regards to, and we certainly can look at a divestment policy, is whether they sit on reserves, again, if any of the halls have been gifted to us. There's all sorts of fish hooks around the various ownerships and the land title, but we can slice and dice that to give you an
And
idea.
there's further work being done around other assets and, yeah, divest them if you like. Cool, so halls, what else are we missing in there? Yep, go to swimming pools. Did you want to go to motor camps, fishing huts? Or fishing huts is easy, that's just the Ringotata. Motor camps, I know we put a bit of a pause. There's a couple of issues sitting with the motor camps, so we just need to give some thinking around that, don't we? Obviously, the income stream is pretty minor, and so...
With the halls, with the motor camps, we have some that actually are on commercial leases. Others, if they're on a reserve, we're locked into whatever the policy is around leasing on a reserve land. And we get, Geraldine is a really good camp. Winchester, it's becoming more of a motorhome permanent camp, so there are some discussions we need to have around that and some issues there. Pleasant Point is only open during the summer, but that could change. We could turn that into a more of a commercial, but we'd have to look at as an ablution block. But it's more the sewerage situation, Winchester and Pleasant Point and the others, that we need to make sure that we've got better sewerage exiting the camps. So some of them have had sumps and undergrounds, which are now not coping and getting towards the end.
Maybe just request a discussion paper until the new year.
Absolutely.
Is that cool? Okay, perfect. Motor camps, what do we do? Swimming pools, team? Is that probably the big one?
Just clarification on that. So we're not going to spend the 430 before we've had the paper?
No, we just paused that. Okay, Winchester ablution, what will block it? We've just paused it at this point. So let's go to swimming pools and then we can get someone else up in the hot seat.
Thank you.
Questions for swimming, for Beth? Did anyone have anything on pools?
My thing on the Pleasant Point, I know it's not till 2027, but I presume we're doing our analysing the community engagement or use at the moment, aren't we?
Yes. So I can give you a bit of an update on what the Pleasant Point upgrade is. What we're actually going to do is change the focus of that, and we're going to have a feasibility study which will take into account all of the district pools. What you'll notice is that we have 3 district pools plus the main town centre pool, all within the space of between 15 minutes and half an hour drive of each other. Obviously, the cost associated with some major upgrades in facilities that may or may not be well used should actually be considered. So what we are doing at the moment, we've rolled out another program to make sure that we're getting sufficient data on pool usage that can be used as part of an empirical assessment of which assets we should potentially keep or potentially let go as well. So what I'm requesting will be a feasibility study for the assessment of all of those pools altogether, rather than putting money specifically to the upgrade of one of those pools.
Perfect, thank you. So that's you done, I think, Beth?
Yes.
Was there any?
Unless there's anything else?
Seabay, just...
City Hubs, Andrew.
You've got capital works, 130,000 this year for Seabay. What's it for?
For capital works, for maintenance programs that haven't been done for the last good 10 years or so that really should be explored.
We just put new doors and...
We've put new security
Shut down
doors.
for 2 weeks, and
Yes.
didn't we spend money then?
So I can speak to the fact that there's an annual shutdown that occurs every single year, and that's make sure that critical maintenance gets done. So that's your cleaning, but also replacement of pumps potentially as well. So we have mapped out now for the first time in, I think, ever, a full maintenance program. We've got roofing tiles that need to be replaced, lighting that needs to be replaced, and there's a whole program of works that needs to be considered as part of making sure that facility is safe.
No, it's perfect. Thank you. So I think we might go parks, water, roading, if that's okay. Bill? Yeah, no, that's all right. 6.5. What time's the airport? We're going to be out there at 3. No, we're going to be at the airport by, is there a time? Anyone know? I'm sorry, I didn't know No. I think, yeah, it'll start at, I assume it starts at 3. Andrew, do you know the time for the airport? 3 o'clock, perfect. So we can go to 2:40. Yeah. Bill, okay, Parks team, questions? Stu?
I guess it's along the Egantai City Town Highfield development at 5.5 million, Bill, and I guess it's to my fellow councillors. The numbers we got this morning saying if we did the stadium and the theatre, we'd be at our debt cap. So I'm not sure how a project of that size is even going to make it to the starting gate.
And yes, it needs to be considered. So that's obviously just all loan funded. And then the shared urban tracks, that'll be actually OPEX, won't it? Because that sits in there all the time, the 200K per year, that's actually operations, isn't it? That's new track, so that's loan funding too.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just, okay, brilliant. And that's not new though, Bill, is it? It's always, or is that new?
But it's not an addition, but it's been an ongoing thing for a number of years.
For some time. So have we always loan funded that?
I think so.
Yes, we have.
Yeah, okay. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder if we can't, it makes sense that we rate to do something like that, I would have thought. Yeah.
Indirectly, it's rates through, yeah.
Indirectly, directly.
Appreciate.
Comes out of that massive difference. We've got to save money somewhere.
Yeah, Alan.
Look, just in regards to the Highfield Park development, we probably could put a business case around that in regards to the land at the top being subdivided potentially and actually sold off to, and that would probably pay for a fair chunk of that upgrade in regards to what you've got in the budget. So we just need to be a little bit more, I guess, creative.
A request, I know there's probably been some work done on that, Bill, anyway, so request for the new year for business case around that to some extent?
Yes, I have started that exercise.
Be ahead. Yeah, good point, Councillor Booth. Michelle.
I agree with you, Councillor Booth, for a change. What is this 20 million of structures, services, furniture and fencing? Because it's some pretty fancy park benches.
There are thousands of assets across the parks. Well, if you spend 2,500 on one and others, we've got courts redevelopment going now, which is 110,000. There's multiple assets out there. We've got 646 hectares in parks with all sorts of stuff on it, roads, water supplies.
11 domains.
Yeah, but I just see that the reseal program, the equipment renewals and the walkways and that are all separate. So that's $20 million on, I'm not sure what. I guess they're just asking for it, not now, but at some point we probably need a little bit more detail portion of the capital budget.
And perhaps that can be part of the discussion with the report for the I know the report's been done, but the 17A review for that, because I think that some of those items, there might be some cost efficiencies by providing some of those elements from within an internal team versus an external. Andrew's not convinced.
I guess though, this is the one a wee bit like the computers at the top. We've done that, but $500,000 playground renewals, we've just done C-Play. I'm not saying we can it, but there must be some savings we can drive if we're serious, and it's not you, Bill, across the organisation about saving money. Are we going to be any worse, for example, if we put 300K in? I don't know, but we just can't sit here and nod to these lines and expect to save money.
I think that's fair, but the only thing is we have playground safety standards and undersurfacing and things like that that wear out and we need to replace.
Look, I agree, Bill, but there might be reserve land that we're mowing that we don't even need. I just think at some stage we've got to have a hard look at the operation and what we're putting in. Because when do the standards come in? Have we got time, as Paul would say, with earthquake, 15 years? We don't have to do it all tomorrow. And we're not going to save money by just ticking off these line items.
I agree with you. We look at what we're doing. Unfortunately, the standards have been in for several years and we're bound by them. Well, council has adopted them.
It's a level of service discussion that you have, and if you're willing to drop that level of service, and there will be complaints, that's fine, we can match the budget towards that,
Yeah, that's right. I think that's part of that review, so I think we can really dive into that in detail. The question, the playground renewals, has that increased, is that correct? The 500K? And are we loan funding that renewal program? Because that's where we get into trouble, because that's a big number that adds up if we are loan funding it.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I don't have where it's coming from.
Yeah, well, one of the things I will point out is that our Parks and Reserves assets are still on deemed value funding, depreciation. So they are valued on a 2005, and they have only had additions effectively added to it. So we are not on fair value depreciation for these assets. So our depreciation fund is fairly low.
No, we're here to help. We're going to put some depreciation in there. It's okay.
So I will have to say that the depreciation is fully used, and then if there needs to be a top up at this loan fund.
But my question is, do you bite the bullet and if we got to do the renewals, at some point we need 1% in the rates to pay for that 500K, because we can't just keep loaning 500K a year for such, for playground renewals. That just doesn't pass the sniff test in my regard, and sorry, apologies for using that sort of language. But let's move on. Any more questions for Parks? And we're eating up valuable time. 6 minutes each for the...
No, I've actually advised your activity managers, they'll be back next week from 10
perfect.
to 12.
Yeah.
And they're more than happy with that. I will also have information management, CE and/or IT manager here to address the first item.
Yeah, cool.
For next week. So what I suggest, councillors, we're at the very tail end of this. I want to go back and revisit the questions, but any other questions for Parks? Now's your chance.
Yeah, anything?
I was just making sure I understood. So what we've asked for is, say, with that, is actually understanding over the next, again, 5 years, what is actually scheduled to be done. Is that what we asked to be shown?
Yeah, and we are due a really in-depth conversation on Parks, so you'll have a good opportunity.
Oh, yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, because they're quite odd numbers. So obviously there's there's line items of what you're doing and all that. I think that'd be helpful to understand locations, and especially around that 20 million.
So any further questions for Parks? And thanks, and apologies though for those unit managers that have been sitting in here, but I know the likes of water, there's so much technical stuff in there, so it's going to be, there's going to be a million questions for people to get full understanding, so we need to give that the time it's due, and same with roading.
To be fair, I think they have found it really valuable watching the kind of questions that you're asking, so they'll be really well prepared for next week. And so can I just clarify that we are hanging a lot on the Section 17A report for Parks to actually get down to line items to actually look at that?
Well, I think
for CapEx.
I don't think that was probably, it's probably expanding further, but it's an opportunity to have that good discussion. So let's bring this back up when we have that conversation and some other things to...
With the 17A report, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. When do we expect that?
Yeah, I just point out the 17A, so there's an item on the council agenda for next week.
Yes.
Which is basically outlining the 17A and what the next steps of that. Now that next steps is about collecting the costings and doing the business cases for that. So, we are not going to get down to that level.
Right. I already understand, Andrew, you won't disappoint me next Tuesday, it's okay.
Okay. So at this stage, we don't really have many options to present you for Parks based on the conversation you've just had.
No, that's cool. I think we can get into the detail.
Can be a separate schedule we can develop for the renewals.
Yeah. No, that's cool. And then as far as for today, we still need to go back. Where's the value spent for the next 9 minutes? Do you want to have a conversation around the rates range? Because as far as, that's probably pretty good. And then levels of service can probably wait, that's not as important. But so as a starting point, I've come up with a scenario where I think over the period we get similar overall numbers in the plan. And so the starting point, so for, this is my thinking, without being too extreme, would be across general rates, all rates with UA, GC and targeted in there, that we start with 12 and then we have a smoothed at 6 over that, and then to get the balance, fees and charges, we give that a kick of 15. There's going to be some things that you can't jump up that much because there'll be some, such as the airport might be an example, but overall, and then we continue on at 7, and so over the 7%, and I know there's other revenue, but that's sort of consistent, but that over the life of the plan gets us to we don't have that front end money in there, but we end up with a similar dollar value of about 1.7 billion towards the end of it, and then that's not too far out of reach for people's comfort zones, I would have thought. So it might be a place to start as far as a model, roughly, assuming I've got it within Kui. That was 5 o'clock this morning.
Just a question, Nigel, does that leave all the big projects in? Is that...
No, so that builds the revenue up, and then you would have to model the projects around the revenue.
Okay.
Yeah, so I haven't...
So essentially your debt falls out of
yeah.
ultimately
Yeah, no.
what your income is. So then essentially we're looking at a 2.1 debt
2.5.
and then a 2.4, because essentially we can... 2.5. So essentially that can all be on a similar graph or on the, a similar table, because ultimately it's just multiplying whatever you've got and then, Yep.
Sorry, Andrew, when you do that, can you show the headroom? I'm
Yes.
fascinated in headroom and a dollar value. Thank you.
And just so I'm clear, Andrea, that'll show somehow how much we have to save in capital projects?
Yes, well, because obviously we've got our current capital spend here because we haven't ultimately touched this list.
Yep.
So essentially that will be our raw scenario, and then obviously if we've only got 50 million, well then your 128 next year is, there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I just want to make sure we're getting all those numbers so we're clear.
Yes.
So that's next Tuesday, is it?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. The other thing that potentially we could bring is the balanced budget side of things. Is that something that will fall out?
We can look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Potentially we could bring we'll just see how far we get in the next 5 days, 5 days.
Councillors, realising that we have limited resource to actually put into this for that time, being that Brad's contracted for 1 day a week, and that day is spread over multiple days now. What we discussed yesterday in the reference group was that over the holiday break period, the possibility of having that core group for governance that we could pass. Officers will continue to be working over that time, but to have that group that we can touch base with to actually give progress updates. And I'm going to leave that for you to discuss, but that came out of yesterday's reference group meeting.
Yeah, sort of the discussion really briefly. So Councillor Booth, Councillor Jackson, myself were there. Was that it as far as elected members? Gavin wasn't there, was he? No, and we just sort of basically either that group or another group that could sort of assist as sort of a bit of a budget review along the way, bearing in mind that there'll be some stuff done in January and what have you. So if you are available and interested, just let me know, probably is the easiest way. Yeah, and we might, what I might do is I'll get Alicia just to check everyone's availability.
And the function and purpose of that group, of course, is to give us as officers feedback of, yes, that looks good, no, try that one again, that type of thing, so that when we bring you all together, back together in January, we have something really robust. Oops.
Cool. Awesome. I know, some have to go. Thank you. That was really comprehensive. Apologise for those that didn't get to enjoy the seat. We'll have a special show next week for you. Look forward to it. But that was really informative, so we really appreciate that. That's really valuable for us. Yeah.
Thank you very much, councillors. And just as a reminder, what we will do is we will actually write up a summary of your discussion today and some of the key action points that came out of it, circulate that around, also with the key concepts and the key questions that you have at the forefront of your mind when considering, because you'll spend a lot of time between now, next week, and January reflecting on these issues. Thank you for your time. Enjoy your trip out to the airport.